Ambassador, thanks so much for joining us. Happy Independence Day.
Hey, thank you. Great to be here.
Thanks for coming. You're from Michigan, so let's start off with the Gordie Howe Bridge. We've heard from the Prime Minister, the reason from the Canadian side at least, why it's not open, is that the Americans have not wanted it open. There's technicalities associated with issues there. Can you explain the issues that you guys have with the Gordie Howe Bridge right now?
There's just some technicalities to work out. The deal that was signed, 15 years ago, really isn't operational in today's environment. The bridge came in significantly over budget. Was well delayed, so you have to go back and work out some of the parts of the agreement that are out there. We're talking with Mark Wiseman, we're talking with Dominic. Lutnick and I had a call with him this week. I'm optimistic that we can get these issues resolved relatively quickly and that soon the bridge will be open.
But what are the issues? I mean, it's fairly set up. We've got the agreements here that outline that Canada pays for the construction of the bridge, for the interchange, for the land in Michigan, for the land in Canada. American steel and aluminum and construction workers were used on the American side. What is the issue that you guys have?
The issue is exactly the management of the bridge. Canada's financing the bridge. It's like going and buying a home and you get a mortgage. Okay, the bank, at least in the U.S., the bank finances the purchase of the house, and at that point in time, the money is the owner of the house pays the money back. The bank, at the end of that, never says we paid for the bridge. You're financing the bridge, and so right now we're looking at two issues that concern control of the bridge, tariff setting, where the money flows. That's coming across the bridge, because we're not increasing volume on the bridge. All right, it's not like we've got this corridor on the Detroit River right now that has one bridge and has a tunnel. If you want to get from one side to the other, you use either the bridge or you use the tunnel. With the Gordie Howe Bridge coming online, it's not like, oh wow, we're going to see a 30-40% increase in traffic. Most likely it'll be the same traffic, and you're just changing the revenue stream from those two outlets to spreading it over three. So what's the revenue stream? Where does it go in those types of things?
Well, so you want the tolls to increase? You want money sooner? I've got the agreements here. It says
I've read the agreements.
No,
okay?
I know.
Big deal. I've read the agreements. We're working through those issues, and we'll see exactly where we come out.
On the mortgage point, the thing, though, for Michigan is that you've put no risk associated with this. If you had a mortgage and you didn't have to pay any payments and then you got to own 50% of the house later, that sounds like a good deal. I just don't understand what the issue is.
Exactly. Americans are paying for, actually, traffic going through that corridor is paid for revenue from the tunnel, which I understand is partially owned by the city of Windsor and partially owned by the city of Detroit. And it's paid for from revenue coming from the Ambassador Bridge, which is 100% an American-owned company. All right, and so revenue is going from there. And to say Michigan's going to own a bridge at the end of this that they didn't pay anything for, Americans are contributing significantly more than half of the revenue that will pay back. However Canada financed this, whether it was with bonds or loans from the federal government. A significant portion of that money, more than half of it, will be coming from American entities.
You bring up the Ambassador Bridge. The Maroon family, they have donated to a Donald Trump super PAC $1 million. While you were in Congress back in the day, we found records from the 2010.
Wow, you found records that I got money from Matt Maroon.
Well, not just him, but from multiple members of the family.
Sure.
15 donations.
Sure.
Are you doing this, is the administration doing this because of the donations you received from the Maroon family?
Absolutely not. There's legitimate issues here that we're resolving. The bridge was not opened when it was announced a couple of weeks ago by mutual agreement of the Canadian government and the U.S. government. And that statement came out. We're working through the issues. And no, it has nothing to do with the Maroons.
Nothing?
No. So I took, I don't know how familiar you are with American financing of campaigns, okay? But the Maroons operate a significant business in the United States of America. And in the United States, companies that are involved in those kinds of businesses donate to all kinds of campaigns. If I've not gone back and taken a look at who they've all donated to, but I know that they donate to Republicans and Democrats. And my district was on the west side of the state. I'm about as, other than going up into the UP, I'm about as far away from the Ambassador Bridge as you can get. In Michigan, you go from Detroit, and when you hit Lake Michigan, that's where my congressional district was. But yes, they contributed to my campaign. They contributed to my governor's campaign. So yes.
And it's got them nothing then?
Well, it got them nothing.
Well, but this
is how our campaign system works.
No, I understand
okay?
that, but you bring up the bridge, the Ambassador Bridge, in relation to the Gordie Howe Bridge, and saying that it's going to take away revenue from the Ambassador Bridge, and that is a part of the reason why you don't want the Gordie Howe Bridge open right now.
No, I didn't say that. Okay, you're putting words
into my mouth. Well, then please clarify.
What's that?
Yeah, clarify.
I said that part of the revenue that will go and move over to the Gordie Howe Bridge is revenue that is coming from the Detroit corridor, crossing corridor right now, which are two entities, the Detroit-Windsor Tunnel and a bridge, which happens to be the Ambassador Bridge, which is the which is the Ambassador Bridge, which is opened by the Maroons. And so yes, if you're going, most likely, because it's not anticipated that the opening of a new bridge is going to create a whole new stream of traffic crossing the Detroit River. The revenue for the Gordie Howe Bridge is going to come from one of two places, the tunnel or the bridge, the current bridge.
You referenced your district in Grand Rapids. The Chamber of Commerce has come out and said that if the Gordie Howe Bridge doesn't open, jobs in West Michigan are at risk in this situation. What do you have to say to people in Michigan and people that you've represented previously who want to see this bridge open immediately?
Well, they may say it's open immediately. Well, we're working through the issues. Both governments have recognized that there's problems with the agreement that's in place. And when those issues are resolved, the bridge will open.
Is this now a part of the free trade negotiations? Should we not expect to see the bridge open until CUSMA, sectoral tariffs, other issues are dealt with?
We're working through that with Wiseman and Lutnick, I think, and LeBlanc. The four of us hope that we can reach an agreement on this bridge that is not tied into the larger CUSMA negotiations, USMCA negotiations, and that we will, I think there's a good possibility. I'm optimistic we'll open the bridge relatively soon.
In weeks, months?
I mean, it takes two parties to get to a deal.
All right.
Okay?
Let's move over to CUSMA. There's lots going on there.
Right.
The Mexicans and the Americans have had formal negotiations, yet you haven't had that with the Canadian side yet. Can you explain why that hasn't happened?
There's two parties to the negotiation. All right, it's another deal that is through the works. Obviously, we believe that we and the Mexicans believe that we have made significant progress at initially a 30,000-foot level, saying, okay, these are the things that are important to the U.S. These are the things that are important to Mexico. Directionally, this is where we want to go. This is how we see the framework of an agreement. All right, now let's sit down and let's have the technical details worked out on these issues. And to do that, we got to sit across the table from each other and fill in the details. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. We've had 2 rounds of negotiations with Mexico to try to fill in the details. We have another one set for later on in the month of July with a possibility of having 1 or 2 more rounds of talks in August. So significant progress at 30,000 feet, saying here's where we both want to go. This is directionally the issues that we want to address. We're kind of in alignment, what we want to accomplish. Now let's fill out the details. But we haven't gotten to that point with Canada.
So no significant progress with Canada?
There's maybe been some progress, but not the significant amount of progress that says, okay, we know exactly where we're going. Now let's fill out the details.
On what issues have there been some progress?
Well, I'm assuming on most of there's probably been progress on a number of issues, but not again to the point where it's like, okay, let's fill in the blanks, let's do the details, and let's get this worked out and put it in. Let's move from an agreement that is relatively short to something that may end up like the original NAFTA, which was 1,000 pages. Okay, so.
One of the arguments or things that we've heard is that the reason that there haven't been formal negotiations between Canada and the U.S. is because the American side would like additional concessions in advance of those formal talks even starting. Is that the case? Obviously,
there are certain things that create real roadblocks. The prohibition of the sales of American goods into Canada is a problem, and those types of things. And exactly where Greer and the president are today, I think they've said publicly in the past that the ban on alcohol and these types of things were an impediment to actually getting into serious negotiations. But where they are on July 4, 2026, you'll have to ask the president and Jameson on that.
So those things being in place means that there won't be formal negotiations, because there seems to be no timeline for when those could start.
That will be decided by the president, the prime minister, Jameson, Greer, and Dominic. But right now, the public information is clear. There are no formal, detailed negotiations because there's a whole lot of issues out there that we haven't made progress on.
Why do you think that is?
I know that from our perspective, the U.S. is more than willing to get to a deal, to make arrangements. Somebody else will have to talk about where the Canadians are as to whether they're ready to get to a deal. I can't address the Canadian perspective in terms of what they believe may be the roadblocks.
That sounds like you feel like they don't want to make a deal.
No. Don't put words
no,
in.
That's why I'm asking. That's why I'm asking.
I'm not going to characterize the Canadian side. Dominic and the Prime Minister, Janice, they can speak for themselves. I don't have to speak for them.
I'd like to get some clarification from you, hopefully, on something we've heard from the President and from Jameson Greer. When the President's been asked about USMCA in renewal before
Sure.
July 1st, he talked about the idea of terminating the agreement. He said that on multiple occasions, and in the statement that Jameson Greer put out on July 1st, there was also the idea of terminating the agreement. 6 months formal termination out of the deal. Is that something that your administration is considering?
I'm sure that with the President, all options are on the table, that clearly is allowed for within the agreement. And the President and Jameson and Lutnick, they'll go through the process over the next week, over the next 4 weeks, over the next 8 weeks, and see how much progress is being made. And if there's not significant progress being made, again, all options are on the table for the President. All options are on the table for the Prime Minister. All options are on the table for Mexico.
Well, neither Mexico nor Canada want to terminate the agreement. They wanted to renew it. The Americans are the only group in this three that have talked about terminating it.
All options are on the table for all three. I mean, it's a tough business environment right now, okay? The business for, I hear Canadians talking about the 232, 232 tariffs, which are permitted under CUSMA, under USMCA. We have the prohibition of American products being sold into Canada. That's an irritant on our part. We are consistently seeing more provinces putting out procurement for major projects that do not allow for American companies to bid on those projects. So it's for a while it was the 11 provinces, and Alberta and Saskatchewan were not. But Alberta is now putting out contracts that do not permit American companies to bid on those procurement projects. So there's a lot of issues out there that have to be worked through. None of this is very easy. It's pretty complicated right now.
No, it does sound complicated, but it doesn't sound like the negotiations are going particularly well. But you brought up the 232s.
Yep.
I don't want to go something, the Congressional Research Service here. They say currently Section 232 steel and aluminum tariffs apply to USMCA compliant goods. The last time you were in the studio and we talked, you were very upset. You said this about tariffs. This was about the counter tariffs that Mark Carney had on the time and things like orange juice
Sure.
and stuff like
Which
that.
are not permitted under the CUSMA rules.
Just for the record,
Right,
I want to read out what you had to say. Canadians also started putting tariffs on CUSMA products. We haven't done that, but Canada has decided that's fair game. We'll call into question into CUSMA. Have you not done that with the 232 tariffs into steel and aluminum that are on CUSMA products?
232 tariffs are permitted under the USMCA agreement. Tariffing of CUSMA products, just picking a few out and saying is not permitted under USMCA. If there's a legal framework, Canada could have chosen to use that framework, but they chose to use a mechanism that was not. The good thing is Canada pulled those quote-unquote retaliatory tariffs off of off of those goods because they recognized that it was not compliant with USMCA.
Going forward, will you guarantee that the CUSMA exemption that is on most of these tariffs already will remain?
I'm not in a position to guarantee anything. These decisions are made at the White House, they are made by the president, and they are made by his negotiating team. I'm not in a position to make any kind of guarantees along those lines.
You know that was the reason the Prime Minister pulled the counter tariffs, has not applied additional tariffs subsequently, because there is that CUSMA carve-out. So that could go away at any point in time.
These are decisions that are made at the White House. Okay, it's not my decision, and I'm not in the position to guarantee or to frame in the president in terms of saying, I can promise you that the White House, that President Donald Trump is not going to do this. That's not my. He hasn't given. I get a piece of paper that says I'm here representing the President of the United States. He hasn't given me a direction that says, Pete, you can say these things about the trade agreement, and I can promise you that we're not going to do this. And you can tell the Canadians that. He hasn't given me that authority.
Okay, well, let's move on then. You were very upset with Doug Ford's World Series ads. You said that was...
No, America was upset.
Well, you of course, as the conduit here, were upset. I think that's a fair statement. Interfering in American politics. You've never seen things like this before. You've said things to that effect.
Yes.
Earlier this year, Scott Bessent came out and said, Alberta has a wealth of natural resources, but they won't let them build a pipeline to the Pacific. I think we should let them come down to the U.S. Alberta is a natural partner for the U.S. They have these great resources. The Albertans are a very independent people. Rumor, they may have a referendum on if they want to stay in Canada or not. He had a very big smile on when he said that. Is that not the same kind of interference that you were upset about with Doug Ford, with Mr. Bessent talking about the Alberta referendum?
No, it's two different things, okay? What you had with Doug Ford is running with government money, okay, taxpayer money, which we find amazing, that taxpayer money is used to pay for political ads in, number one, in Canada, but also number two, it's allowed to use taxpayer money to run ads in the United States of America. Running those ads specifically during an election season, specifically targeting the President of the United States and his policies. We've never seen that before.
But on the Alberta stuff, do you have not see an issue with that, and see why Canadians were upset by the comments of the Secretary?
Canadians get upset about a number of things, and they have every right to get upset if we say some things and those types of things. There are lots of instances of Canadian politicians saying things about American politics or American policies and those types of things that I'm not happy about. I don't focus on them. I do focus on a government entity running political ads in the United States targeting our president and his policies. That doesn't happen. As far as I can tell, that has never happened in American history before.
On the referendum, I'd like to stick on that. In 1995, the Clinton administration was very clear. They wanted Quebec to stay in Canada. Do you want Alberta to stay a part of Canada?
That's the president's call. I think at this point in time, we've made it very clear we are not going to take a position on that. That's a decision that is to be made by the people of Alberta, the province of Alberta, and the federal government. That's a discussion between those entities. It's not a discussion that the American government is going to get involved with.
There's a small section of Alberta separatists, it is small, but who would like to join the United States. Is that something the Trump administration would like to see?
This is a decision that's going to be made by those three entities involved in this process: the people of Alberta, the province, and the federal government. That's it. I don't anticipate you're going to see the United States get involved. I'm not going to get a directive, I don't believe, from the President of the United States, from our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, that says, Pete, go out there and do what you can to advocate for secession or for the people of Alberta to vote to stay as part of the Confederation. That's not your job. I'm working on the three things that the President told me to work on. What can we do to increase the prosperity of the United States? What can we do to protect and increase the safety of the American people and the security of America?
So not going to get involved. The separatists have argued that you have kind of got involved. They've said that there have been meetings between administration officials and them. Can you confirm that that has happened?
Separatists can say whatever they want.
But did that happen?
I don't know. As far as I know, in our dialogue with the State Department, number one, we meet with all kinds of different groups, okay? I'm sure that, as you do your research sometime, we're doing a party this afternoon, okay, that may have close to 3,000 people. We're somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 people, okay? Might there be a separatist person there or a separatist couple? It's possible, okay? I'm going to the Stampede on Sunday. I will be there for 3 days. Okay.
But that's different than having a meeting at the State Department. And they haven't met with you? You haven't met with anyone?
I've not met with the separatists, okay? But does that mean that, on Thursday, after I leave Calgary and having been there for 3 days, will it be possible for you to find a picture with me with two separatists? And I will say the answer is yes.
But that's not the point I'm trying to make,
No, we're not meeting with the separatists and strategizing this at all. No.
So no $50 billion credit facility. They've said that was the case, that the American government has had conversations with them about that. That's not true?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay.
No.
Final question. I'd like to ask you a little bit about yourself.
Okay.
You've mentioned on a couple of occasions that Canadians don't have a sense of humor. You've been frustrated at different points in time about the 51st Day comments, and I don't want to relitigate that. But these seem like comments of someone who's very frustrated and maybe not happy in the position or the job that they have. Do you intend to stay your full term here in Canada for the full 4 years?
You take this day by day. I mean, we have built a phenomenal relationship with the business community. We have built a phenomenal relationship with the folks, anybody who touches defense, because they really appreciate the Canadian American participation and cooperation in defense. They realize and recognize that we've created prosperity and wealth on both sides of the border. We've created lots of jobs on both sides of the border, and they have the same objective in mind that I have, which is let's get to an agreement. Let's create a relationship that not only builds on the strong economic ties that we have today, we're bringing back industries, all right? PDAC, the big mining conference. A few years ago, it wasn't that well attended. This year, I think they said they had the largest attendance in their history. Mining is coming back. Canada's good at mining, okay? There's a lot of minerals that we need. That's an opportunity for a great partnership. We're bringing together, we can bring back mining. It's happening around the world. We have a partnership with Canada and Finland to build icebreakers, bringing back shipbuilding to the United States of America. We lost a lot of that capability, and we're bringing part of that back. That's a dying industry that's coming back. And then you take a third bucket of economic opportunity, and that's all the new industries out there, whether it's space, whether it's the digital world, uranium and those types of things, energy, data centers. It's another area potentially where we could work together on if we decide to go in that direction. And so, those are the things that I'm working on. I stay here as long as the president wants me here.
So you weren't in conversations to become the director of national intelligence? The Associated Press has reported that.
Whatever conversations we had, I was in Congress.
You could be good at it. I'm not saying.
I was in Congress. No, in 2004, the way our Congress works is the Senate had passed an intelligence reform bill. The House had passed an intelligence reform bill. I was chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. I was named as the chairperson to work out the differences between the House and the Senate. So I worked with Susan Collins, Joe Lieberman, and Jane Harmon. And the four of us spearheaded the rewrite of our national intelligence law. Okay, that created the National Director of Intelligence, that law. So that's 2004. 22 years later, if President Donald Trump had called me up and said, Pete, we'd like you to take a look at this National Director of Intelligence. Does it bear any resemblance to what you thought it was going to look like when you created this 22 years ago? I would jump at the chance.
So you didn't get the offer, or
I didn't get the offer. No, if the president offered me that job, but it comes with, I'd love it because of my professional experience and my role in creating that job. But at the same time, it comes with a lot of drawbacks. In all of my political experience, I've never lived in Washington, D.C. I don't really anticipate that I would love. So I think I think Diane would have let me take the job, but the offer didn't come. President picked a very qualified person to for Senate confirmation. They're working through that, and we'll be well served with a great director of national intelligence.
And we've got you here in Ottawa, at least for the time being. So, Ambassador, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.